Yeah, they're both making good progress. They'll still be day-to-day, but the anticipation and the hope is that they'll be able to play this week.
How close were you to potentially activating somebody like Bobby Evans, and what went into the decision to make him inactive?
Yeah, it was really more along the lines of because, Austin also fills the backup center role, just looking for more of an interior presence. Bobby's a guy that's continued to do a good job, and really Jamil did a nice job stepping up in Austin's absence. But those are things that we'll continue to look at, and hopefully we'll get Austin back and kind of be able to go back to what was our consistent, 7 that we had in those first couple weeks. But those are things that we're always looking at. No, we came away pretty clean. Nothing different than just the typical bumps and bruises, but guys are feeling good. Well, I think a win is a win. I think there's some things when you look at yesterday's game, you never take for granted a win. Credit for the Browns. They did a great job of making things difficult, but I think there were some things, really that we look at that we think we can expect to, execute at a higher level on, specific to offense. There's some decisions that I certainly can do a much better job with, but I think the confidence, the expectations, and the standards that we have for the caliber of players that we have playing, we think we can do some things a little bit better. And I would say, those are things that you always feel week in and week out, but it is about getting the win, and we'll take that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it starts with, are we putting our players in positions to be successful based on what the play selection is? Certainly the players will make you right in a lot of instances, but I think our job as coaches, and specifically my job, is to make sure that with some of the play selections that you're activating, do these give you premier answers versus some of the looks that you're seeing? And those are things that you always look at yourself and make sure that, you're doing as good a job as you can. This is a player's game. They do an outstanding job, but we feel like we have a role, and I feel, responsible for trying to do the best I can to help put the guys in those consistently, hopefully good spots.
With Demby and Notebook now in particular, what kind of progress have you seen from them for the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think really being able to evaluate, Brian over the first 3 weeks as a center, I think he's done a nice job with the communication, especially when you look at 2 road atmospheres of our first 3 games, where we're in the absence of a lot of our verbal communication. So for a first-year starting center, been really pleased with him. I think Joe's made steady progress, and I think Jamil really getting his first action against the Saints last year, stepping in a big way when Austin went down. And then I thought he did some good things yesterday, and there were certainly some things that he'll learn from. But I did like the way that he responded from some of those setbacks. He didn't let that affect his ability to move forward, and that's what we always talk about. So I think a lot of positive things from 3 young linemen that have gotten a lot of experience in these first 3 weeks of the season.
When you say there are things that you guys can execute better offensively, what are examples that you saw when you were reviewing the tape?
There's a lot of things. I mean, it's really, you'd have to go by each play. There's so many little nuances that occur within the framework of, is it third downs? Is it some of the red zone? Is it some of our normal down and distances? So, and it's not exclusive to one spot. Like I said, there's a lot of situations that when you look at yourself as a coach, you say, all right, these are things that I've got to make better decisions, have a better feel for the flow of the game, get things communicated to our players so that there's clarity on their part of what to expect or what kind of the intent of the call is. So, there's so many different ways I could go with that, but I think ultimately it's about everybody doing a little bit better, playing to the best of their ability, and then me and our coaches doing a good job of putting guys in better spots.
Is there a pattern in some of the things you're seeing, just generally overall, that maybe led to some of those things?
There's really not. It's just different things that led to, all right, some opportunities that we had to be able to create some explosives, make some conversions on some third downs, and then there were some instances, like I said, where really some of the play selections didn't give us much of a chance. So it's a situation where there's a lot of things that we feel like are very fixable, and that's why we're excited to move forward and see if we can do that this week. No, we're not doing anything like that, Liz. It's more along the lines of, each week presents a different, approach, and it's kind of the feel, the flow of the game. We want to get Todd involved. I'd like to do better about being able to give him a chance to really get more into a rhythm than what I've enabled him to do in these first 3 games. But then you also want to be able to give Malcolm some of his snaps, and I think it's worked out good in terms of the balance. But, like I said, I think there's some things that you'd like to do a lot better job of giving Todd an opportunity to really get going. And yesterday I didn't really represent that chance for him. Right. Yeah, I think it's really just kind of been some of those things, just the way that the game has kind of evolved and unfolded, and really those are things that we always try to look at week in and week out. Yeah. He was outstanding. I think when you look at it, gets targeted 12 times, has 11 catches. Thought his 2 touchdowns were timely. He had another catch really in that high red area before he ended up having the 11-yard touchdown where he crossed his face. He and Jared have a good rapport, but he made big plays time in and time snap in and snap out last night, and he's been clutch for us. It's been great having him back. Unbelievable, right? Yeah, I mean, he's got elite awareness. I mean, we were in a situation where there was some communication where we got a little bit mixed up on what personnel grouping we were in. Guys were aligned in some different spots, and Cooper was able to recognize that Brandon was not covering up the tackle to get into a legal formation from the opposite side of the formation. On a 3rd down and 5, he's signaling with urgency to get Cooper or to get Brandon on the line of scrimmage, and we just get the play snapped off on a 3rd and 5, and he catches the screen and converts. But that play right there, I didn't realize they had pointed it out, but when we watch it on the tape, I mean, that epitomizes one of the many things that's special about just his overall awareness, how smart he is, and then he's obviously a great player with the athleticism to match. I think the players would be able to tell you better than I could, just because so much communication goes on in the absence of coaches' interaction when we're on the sidelines. But when you just watch and you see the way that he approaches it week in and week out, he does approach it like a quarterback. I mean, he wants to understand the big picture. I mean, he wants to know what's going on. He's thinking of different ways that we can do certain schemes or try to attack different defensive structures. So he's a special player. He's one of those guys that makes you accountable as a coach, because he's going to have things well thought out, and you better have the answers for him. And if not, you say, that's probably a pretty good idea. Maybe we should think about doing that. I think he's had some really good moments, and I think there's some situations that really, like I said, I think a lot of it starts with some of the selections and some of the spots that I put him in. But ultimately, the goal is to win games. And for us to be 3-0, I think what says as much about him as anything is that, I think we expect to be, more consistent throughout the course of the game, start a little bit faster. But the fact that he's been unfazed, he's had a chance to really, be instrumental in a lot of touchdown drives. When you look at the 2 that we did have in the second half yesterday, thought he did a great job of making some key 3rd down conversions where guys are pressuring him. There's free guys in his face. He sits in there, he speeds it up, and he's able to deliver accurate balls and keep his eyes down the field. So I think he's shown why he's a special player, and I think like anything else, there's always going to be some things that we look at that we can improve, and I'm excited to do that with him. Yeah, I think two really smart players that have a great feel for the game. I think they enjoy each other off the field. Some of those things you can't be underestimated, just the importance of the rapport, the camaraderie, being able to compete with one another. But I think guys that have a similar skill set, I think when you look at Eric's experience and the amount of different things that he's seen, and then watching the way that he and John have ended up kind of connecting, I think they've both raised each other's level of play. You've seen it rub off on Taylor Rapp, and really both those two have been instrumental in a lot of the success we've had early on in this season on defense. Yep. Well, I think it was a big moment in the season up to this point, no doubt about it. There's a lot of games left to be had, but I thought really for our defense to be able to have 4 shots from the 4-yard line to stand up, make plays, especially when you look at the personnel, the ability for Baker to create off schedule, some of the guys they have on the perimeter. It was outstanding. It demonstrated really, I thought that 4-play sequence was kind of indicative of the type of night it was where, hey, just finding a way to get it done, remaining mentally tough and executing in crunch time, and that's what our guys did. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a collaborative effort. I think it starts with the coaches being able to put together a good game plan that's conducive for trying to limit some of those explosive playmakers like you mentioned, Kevin. And, I've been really impressed with just their ability to execute, because they do a good job of moving Odell around a little bit. It's not exclusively like he's at one spot. So based on some of the different things that we had, there were some times that we ended up having high and low help on him, but we were always aware of where he was. And with the type of playmaker that he is, he can score at any moment. And I thought our guys did a great job of executing the game plan. And Wade and our defensive coaches putting together a plan that was conducive for trying to, limit the effect that a great player like Odell can have on the game. All right. Thanks, guys.